The Flint's keychain is back, this time with a Tron game, and that Tron game is Tron Maze-A-Tron for your Intellivision, my Patreon pick of the month. And looks like the MCP is not too happy, but Flynn's looking pretty confident. Let's go ahead and take Tron Maze-A-Tron. Let's pop it in my Intellivision and see how it holds up today. Let's go to the game. Tron Maze-A-Tron was published by Mattel and carries a copyright year of 1982. It is based on the 1982 Disney cult classic film. It was programmed by Russ Haft, who would later work on the sounds for the games Atari brought to the Intellivision. The manual opens with the following. In the computer fantasy world of Tron, the power-hungry master control program, the MCP, seeks to control the human race. You are Flynn, the daring young programmer transported into the heart of the computer to find and disable the MCP. Tron Maze-A-Tron is a maze action game for one player only and has 4 speeds you can select at the beginning of the game. For the slowest speed, you press button 3, followed by button 2, then button 1, or you can press the disc for the fastest speed. You can also press the practice button on the overlay to practice the battle with the MCP. The overlay also shows that you use the disc to move, the 11 button to use a stop in the game, the lower side buttons to use your force shield, and the upper side buttons to use zeros in the first phase and to fire in the second phase. Whenever you start the first phase of the game, on the bottom of the screen there will be some numbers that show, going from left to right, your number of energy units, which you start out with 25, the number of zeros you have stored, which you start out with 0, and the number of lives you have left. These will quickly leave, and for the majority of the game you won't be able to see them. According to the manual, the game has 4 different circuit boards or mazes that are made up of 38 sections. However, there is no easy way to know which of the 4 circuit boards you're on, and since the game only has 5 different sections used in different combinations to make up the mazes, most everything looks the same. The goal of the first phase is to zero out a set of RAM chips. Only 2 of the 4 circuit boards contain a set of RAM chips, but you only need to zero out 1 set. When the game starts, the screen will automatically start scrolling. If your character ends up being forced off the screen, you'll restart back at the beginning of the first circuit board, which I believe never contains any RAM chips. From time to time in the maze, you will see recognizers. If they are lined up with you either vertically or horizontally, they will be able to home in on you. If they touch you, you will lose a life and start over at the beginning of the first circuit board. You can try to avoid them by getting out of their sensor range, or you can freeze one by pressing and holding down the shield button right before they touch you. Activating the shield will cost you 20 energy units per second. The color of your shield will indicate how much energy you have, with purple being used for weak, yellow being used for fairly strong, and red being used for very strong. You get 15 units back when you freeze a recognizer. To get more energy, you will need to enter a transformer from the left or right side. Every few moments you're in the transformer, you will glow, indicating that you just gained 10 more energy points. However, when you're glowing in the transformer, your shield is not active, and you still can be attacked by a recognizer if you don't activate your shield. The most energy you can have saved up is 255 units. You can also use 30 units of energy to hit the stop button on the overlay to stop the screen from scrolling for 2 seconds. Sometimes you will see zaps traveling along the circuits, who will steal energy from you if they touch you. There are other kinds of chips in the maze as well. Latches have locks on them and can be entered from the left or right. While in a latch chip, you will earn an extra 0 every time you hear the tone. Flip-flops have 2 arrows pointing in both directions. Entering a flip-flop from either side will change the direction of the scrolling. In between some ROM chips are deadly force fields that will cost you a life if you touch them, unless you have a force field on when you're passing through it. Thankfully, these force fields can also freeze recognizers. ROM chips can also indicate that RAM chips may be somewhere on the circuit board you're on. Large I/O chips can be entered from the top or the bottom. Entering an I/O chip will send you to a random area, possibly on a new circuit board. Since circuit boards continue in a loop, it is possible to walk and never see a RAM chip unless you use an I/O to travel to a different circuit board. All the RAM chips have 1s and 0s on them that constantly go back and forth. If you enter a RAM chip from the top, you will freeze a number on the left, and if you enter a RAM chip from the bottom, you will freeze a number on the right. Your goal is to get all the RAM chips to freeze on 0, 0. If you freeze a RAM chip on the number 1, you can enter it and use one of your zeros you collected in the latch chip by pressing the upper side button to turn the 1 into a 0. It can be very difficult in one pass to zero out all of the RAM chips, so you may need to find a flip-flop to reverse the direction of the scrolling to complete this task. If you zero out all of the RAM chips, you will go to the second phase, where you will face the MCP, or Master Control Program. On this screen, you have 2 bit stacks on the outside and 2 bit streams on either side of the MCP that are moving up. During this phase, you can use a disc to move a crosshair and the upper side buttons to shoot the numbers in the inner bit streams. You can earn points during this phase by shooting 2 numbers across from each other in the inner bit streams that match the top 2 numbers on the top of the outer bit stacks, and having them leave the screen while still matching the top outer numbers. If 2 numbers on the inner stream that match the 2 outer stacks numbers leave the screen without both being shot, the outer stacks will go up 1. During all of this, the MCP will shoot at you from time to time, and the only way to protect yourself is to use your shield before his shot leaves the screen. During the second phase, you have unlimited use of shields, and there is no penalty for shooting numbers that don't match. However, if you are hit 3 times by the MCP, with the bottom right number showing how many hits you have left to take, you will lose a life and return to the first phase at the next level, usually at an increased speed. If the outer stacks totally deplete, you will also be sent back to the first phase at the next level, but you won't lose a life. Sadly, there is no way to defeat the MCP in Tron Maze-A-Tron. Scoring wise, you get bonus points for reaching the MCP, with more points being awarded the quicker you reach them and the higher the game level. Every time you shoot a matching pair of numbers that leaves the screen in phase 2, you get 100 points times the game level. You can only earn points in the second phase, and there are no extra lives in the game. Graphically speaking, I think the game looks really nice, especially the MCP phase. Although some more differences in the maze would have been nice, and the flashing in the MCP phase may bother some players. Sound and music wise, I really enjoyed everything the game had to offer, although some players may find it too repetitive. Family friendly wise, the game would most likely get an E for everyone rating if it was released today. At the time I researched on eBay including shipping, loose copies were going for $4, complete copies were going for $8 to $12, and new copies were going for $10 to $16. So what did I think of Tron Maze-A-Tron? Well, this is one game that is not easy to pick up and play, but it can be learned. On the plus side, the graphics and sounds are very good, and it controls pretty well once you get used to it, although aiming in the second phase could have been a little bit easier. On the negative side, I wish you had a status bar on screen throughout the game. I also wish the game told you what circuit board you're on. It made it a little bit easier to find the RAM chips, as it really was tedious at times trying to find those little buggers. Although if you see ROM chips, that seems to indicate that they are somewhere on that circuit. And finally, I really wish there was a way to beat the MCP. Honestly, while I like the look of the second phase, the gameplay was not that enjoyable for me. Now overall, I did like Tron Maze-A-Tron, but it did feel a little tedious at times, and if the game was a little more streamlined, it could have been a lot better. So where am I going to rank Tron Maze-A-Tron? This one is going somewhere in the middle of my rankings. I do like Star Strike more at 19, but I will put this over Skiing at 20. So of the 29 games I've now ranked on the Intellivision, Tron Maze-A-Tron is jumping into an IO transport and ending up in the 20 position. Tron Maze-A-Tron is not that easy to pick up and play, and it can be tedious, but it looks and sounds good, and dedicated players may still enjoy playing it from time to time. But that is only my opinion. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Also, please like, share, and subscribe. Follow me both on the Facebook and the Twitter. Check out some of my many other videos and sign up at patreon.com/NoSwearGamer, just like Jose did, to support the show and gain access to exclusive perks. Thank you for giving me a little part of your day, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the next episode of the No Swear Gamer. Take care and stay charged. End of line.